everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling a book that really gets you thinking about masculinity truth and the systems that shape our lives. I think this is going to resonate with a lot of you.
Yeah, this book really pushes you to question everything you think you know. It's like you're getting this peek behind the curtain, seeing how things really work. And that's so important when you're trying to understand relationships and societal expectations and how those might not always line up.
Right. It's like there's this hidden script we're all supposed to follow, and this book dives right into that.
Totally. One of the first things it tackles is masculinity. It takes you through history, showing how the definition of masculinity has changed so much over time.
Okay, I'm all about examples, so give me an example.
Okay, so think about a Spartan warrior, right? Strength, stoicism, totally dedicated to the state. Now fast forward to the Industrial Revolution, and the ideal man becomes the breadwinner, the guy who provides for his family. Talk about different expectations.
Wow, yeah. That's a huge shift. It really shows you how much our culture shapes these ideas.
Exactly. And the book makes you think, how do those past expectations affect how men see themselves today? Like, how does that shape our relationships and the roles we think we're supposed to play?
Things get really interesting when the book argues that we might not be seeing the world as clearly as we think. It even touches on that philosopher Rene Descartes and his idea that our senses can deceive us.
Right. Descartes was all about questioning everything, trying to find what's absolutely certain. And the book uses that as a starting point to explore how the media shapes our reality.
Yeah.
News, social media, the whole thing.
They bring up that whole Twitter controversy with the Hunter Biden story getting censored right before the election.
Exactly. Whether you agree with it or not, it shows how much power these platforms have to control the narrative. And it plays into this idea that maybe we're not getting the full story, that some viewpoints are being silenced.
So how do we cut through all that noise? How do we figure out what's real?
Well, the book is all about using logic. It's like we're bombarded with so much information these days. It's easy to get caught up in emotions or biased arguments. So this book gives you the tools to think critically.
It goes into those things called logical fallacies. Those are like common errors in reasoning that can totally wreck an argument.
Right, like the ad hominem fallacy, where you attack the person, not the argument. Or the straw man, where you twist someone's position to make it easier to attack. Recognizing these can help you avoid being manipulated or getting into pointless arguments.
It also talks about cognitive biases. Those are like mental shortcuts our brains take that can actually mess up our thinking.
And those can be dangerous. Like confirmation bias, where we just look for information that backs up what we already believe, even if it's wrong.
I've totally been there. It's hard to admit you're wrong, but it's the first step to actually learning and growing.
For sure. And then there's groupthink, where we just go along with the crowd, even if we secretly disagree. Especially online, it feels like you have to agree with certain opinions to fit in.
That's why critical thinking is so important. This book gives you the tools to question everything, to form your own opinions, which is crucial when you're trying to navigate these complex conversations about individual rights versus societal obligations.
Totally. And the book dives into this classic tension, highlighting the importance of both. On one side, you have Ayn Rand and her philosophy of radical individualism. Like, we're all responsible for our own destinies, and we shouldn't be held back by the collective.
And then there's the social contract theory. From guys like Hobbes and Rousseau, they argue that we agreed to give up some freedoms in exchange for the protection and stability of society.
Right. It's this constant back and forth. And I think it's super relevant to the conversations you're having about relationships and what's expected of men today. Like, how much are you willing to sacrifice for the good of the relationship? Where's the line?
That's a question a lot of guys struggle with. And this book gives you a framework to think about it in a deeper way. It doesn't give you easy answers, but it helps you ask the right question.
And then it goes even deeper into this concept of equality and all its complexity.
Okay, I'm listening. What about equality?
Well, the book points out this paradox. Sometimes trying to make everything equal can actually lead to new forms of inequality. It sounds crazy, but they use some really interesting examples.
What?
One example is affirmative action. While it's meant to level the playing field, some people argue that it can actually create disadvantages for people who aren't in the groups it's supposed to help.
That's a good point. It makes you think, is true equality even possible, or is it always going to be this balancing act?
It's a tough question. And I think this book forces you to really wrestle with it. Because if we're going to have honest conversations about men's issues, about fairness and responsibility, we have to be able to handle the nuance.
Absolutely. And speaking of nuances, this is where the book gets a little darker. It goes into this whole idea of truth and deception, how we can be tricked even when we think we're being logical.
It talks about this post-truth era where technology makes it harder to tell what's true and what's fake. We're hit with so much information all the time. It's tough to know who to trust.
They even bring up that chilling example, the big lie tactic. Like if you repeat a lie over and over, people start to believe it.
Right.
It's kind of scary how well that works.
It is. And it shows how important it is to be careful to question the stories we're being told, especially when it comes to things that affect our relationships and how we see masculinity.
So how do we protect ourselves from that? How do we get better at spotting the lies? Do we all need to become like professional fact checkers or something?
Well, the book doesn't have a magic solution, but it stresses how important it is to develop critical thinking skills, to be aware of our own biases, and to always look for different viewpoints.
So it's about being skeptical but not cynical,
Right.
questioning everything without becoming totally distrustful.
Exactly. It's a tough balance, but it's so important in today's world. And that's what makes this book so valuable. It gives you the tools to think for yourself, to challenge the status quo, and to ultimately create a better life for yourself.
So we've talked about how easy it is to be misled, right? Especially with all these big societal narratives.
Yeah.
But the book doesn't just leave you feeling hopeless. It actually digs into human nature, the good and the bad, and how that drives progress or keeps us stuck.
It acknowledges that we're not just these perfectly rational beings. We're driven by emotions, too, by these deep instincts that have evolved over thousands of years.
Okay, so what instincts are we talking about? Give me the good stuff first.
Yeah.
The ones that help us move forward.
Well, the book highlights our capacity for innovation, problem solving. All the incredible advances humanity's made. Technology, medicine, art, that's all driven by this innate desire to create, to make things better, to push the limits.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that we can do amazing things when we set our minds to it. But what about the other side of that coin? What instincts hold us back?
The book doesn't shy away from those. It talks about fear of the unknown, our tendency towards tribalism, and how resistant to change we can be.
Yeah, I can see how those could be problems,
Yeah.
especially when we're talking about challenging traditional ideas about masculinity or questioning the systems that are in place.
For sure. It can be really uncomfortable to step outside those familiar roles, those ingrained beliefs. And the book gets that. It doesn't pretend it's easy.
But it doesn't just dwell on the challenges either, right? There's got to be a way forward.
There is. The book says understanding these instincts, both the good and the bad, is crucial for growth, both personally and as a society. It's about using the positive ones to our advantage and figuring out how to manage the negative ones.
So we have to acknowledge our limitations, but not let them control us.
Exactly. And that leads to another interesting idea that the book explores, this paradox about equality.
Wait, another paradox. Didn't we already cover that with the affirmative action example?
That was about how trying to create equality can sometimes lead to new inequality. This is a different angle. It's the paradox of how focusing too much on equality can actually stifle individual growth and initiative.
Okay, now you've got me curious. Explain that one.
Think about it. If we're always trying to make everyone exactly the same, have the exact same outcomes, it can discourage people from taking risks, from going after their own unique path.
Because if everyone gets the same reward no matter how hard they work, where's the motivation to excel?
Exactly. And the book argues that this can lead to a kind of stagnation in society, where people become complacent, afraid to take risks, and less likely to push for progress.
So it's about finding that balance, right? Between working towards fairness and equality while also encouraging people to be ambitious and take initiative.
Precisely. And I think that's a really important conversation, especially when we're talking about men's issues. Because if we want to empower men to take charge of their lives, to be leaders, to reach their full potential, we have to acknowledge that not everyone is going to follow the same path.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that everyone's different while also working towards a more just and equitable society.
Right. And then the book takes this really interesting turn into the art of persuasion. How we influence others and how they influence us.
Oh, I love this stuff. Tell me more. What kind of techniques does it talk about?
Well, it emphasizes how important it is to understand your audience, to tailor your message to their values and beliefs. And it talks about the power of storytelling, how a good story can be incredibly persuasive.
Yeah, stories can really get past our logical defenses and connect with us on a deeper level.
Exactly. But the book also looks at the darker side of persuasion, how it can be used to manipulate and deceive.
Okay, that's a little unsettling. So how can we tell the difference between ethical persuasion and just plain manipulation?
That's the key question. And the book really encourages you to think about it. It says it's important to be aware of your own biases, to question the motives of the people trying to persuade you, and to always get different perspectives.
So it's like being your own BS detector.
Pretty much. You have to be careful, especially these days when we're bombarded with information and persuasive messages from every direction.
That's super relevant when you're trying to figure out relationships right.
Yeah.
Because there can be a lot of manipulation and game playing going on there.
Absolutely. And the book gives you a way to understand those dynamics. It explores the concept of power dynamics, how power works in different areas, from personal relationships to work to society as a whole.
Okay, so we're not just talking about arguments anymore. We're talking about power struggles.
Exactly. And the book points out that power isn't always obvious. It can be really subtle, even unconscious. It can be in the way we communicate the roles we take on, the expectations we have of ourselves and others.
I'm starting to see power dynamics everywhere now. It's like this invisible force shaping everything. So what's the takeaway from the book about all this?
It says understanding power dynamics is crucial for navigating the world effectively. It's about recognizing where the power is, how it's being used, and how we can either challenge it or use it for good.
So it's not about becoming power hungry or manipulative. It's about using that awareness to create healthier, more balanced relationships.
Exactly. And I think that's especially relevant for men who are trying to break free from those traditional and often limiting ideas about masculinity. It's about understanding how those ideas can be used to control and manipulate, and then choosing to write your own story.
That's powerful. Okay, hit me with the next big idea. What's next?
Well, this one might make you a little uncomfortable. The book goes back to the idea of truth and deception, but this time it focuses on how we can even deceive ourselves.
Deceive ourselves. How does that even work?
I see.
Isn't that just like lying to yourself?
It is in a way, but it's often not on purpose. The book goes deep into the world of cognitive biases. You know, those mental shortcuts our brains take that can lead to distorted thinking.
Oh yeah, we talked about those earlier, like confirmation bias and groupthink.
Yeah.
So we're basically tricking ourselves without even realizing it.
Exactly. And the book gives some really interesting examples of how this happens in our lives.
Like what? Give me an example. I love examples.
Well, think about the classic sunk cost fallacy. That's where we keep putting time, money, or emotion into something, even when it's clearly not working, just because we've already invested so much. It's like we're trying to justify our past decisions, even if it means making things worse now.
Oof, I've totally been there. It's hard to admit you were wrong, especially when you've already put in so much.
It is, and that's why self-awareness is so important. The book stresses that we need to recognize these biases, these mental blind spots, so we can start making better, more objective decisions.
So we have to be willing to question ourselves, to challenge our own assumptions. It's not just about spotting deception in other people. It's about being honest with ourselves.
Absolutely. And that's where the book's exploration of human instincts comes full circle. Because those instincts, even the negative ones, are part of what makes us human.
So it's not about trying to suppress them or pretend they don't exist. It's about understanding them, learning to work with them, and using them in a positive way.
Exactly. And I think that's a really empowering message, especially for men who are trying to redefine masculinity on their own terms. It's about knowing our strengths, admitting our weaknesses, and ultimately taking responsibility for who we are and who we want to be.
All right, so we've talked about instincts and biases and even how we can trick ourselves, but this book doesn't just point out the problems. It offers solutions too. And one of the big ones is tackling these deep-seated assumptions about the world, those social constructs that shape our lives.
Right? It's like these constructs are the bars of the matrix, you know? We might not even see them, but they're limiting our choices and shaping how we see things and even how we act.
Okay, remind me again, what exactly are social constructs? I always get a little confused about that term.
So think of it this way. They're ideas, beliefs, or even behaviors that society creates and reinforces, not something based on like objective truth or biology.
Okay, give me a concrete example. I always need an example.
Sure. The book uses the traditional breadwinner model of masculinity as a perfect example. You know, this idea that a man's worth is tied to how well he provides for his family financially. That's not something men are born with, right? It's a construct that's developed over time based on history and economics.
We're not born with these ideas. They're given to us by society.
Exactly. And the book challenges us to start questioning those constructs, to realize that a lot of what we take for granted are really just made-up rules that we can choose to accept or reject.
That's a powerful thought. So if we can identify those constructs and break them down, what happens then? What's the goal?
The book says that by breaking free from these limiting beliefs, we can create a society that's more authentic, more fulfilling, and even more equitable. It's about opening up possibilities, letting people define their own paths instead of being stuck in these boxes.
Okay, I'm definitely on board with this whole breaking the matrix idea.
Yeah.
But it still feels kind of overwhelming. Where do we even start?
The book actually gives some practical advice on how to use these ideas in your own life. And it all starts with self-awareness.
I'm all about self-reflection. What kind of self-awareness are we talking about?
It encourages you to take a good, hard look at yourself. Examine your own beliefs and behaviors, you know, the things you do or think almost automatic. And then ask yourself, where these beliefs come from? Are they helping me? Or are they holding me back?
So step one is being totally honest with yourself, even if it's uncomfortable.
Exactly. And the book even has some exercises to help you do this, things like journaling, meditation, or even just having honest conversations with people you trust.
So breaking the matrix starts with breaking down our own internal walls.
Absolutely. The book argues that once you start seeing yourself clearly, you can start seeing the world more clearly. You can start to recognize those external constructs that are shaping your life, your relationships, your choices.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so self-awareness, self-reflection.
hmm
What else? What are some other takeaways for actually taking action?
It also talks about the importance of finding your tribe, connecting with other people who share your values and who also want a better world.
Yeah, I like that. There's power in numbers, right? But how does that tie into breaking the matrix?
Well, those connections give you support, encouragement, and accountability. They help you stay focused on your goals, especially when things get tough. And they can also make your impact bigger because when you work together, you can create change on a larger scale.
So it's about building a network of like-minded people who are all committed to personal growth and making a difference.
Exactly. And that can be super powerful, especially when you're challenging beliefs and systems that are really ingrained.
Okay, I'm feeling inspired. But I also know change takes time. What advice does the book have for staying motivated and actually making progress?
One of the most important things is to take action, even if it's just small steps at first.
We talked about that earlier, but I'm still curious. What kind of action works best? Does it have to be something big and dramatic?
Not at all. It could be something as simple as deciding to have more open and honest conversations with the people in your life. Challenge each other's assumptions, get different perspectives. Or it could be about supporting organizations that are working towards the kind of change you want to see.
So it's about finding those chances to take action in everyday life.
Yeah.
Those small choices that build up to something bigger.
Exactly. And the book reminds us that even those little actions can create a ripple effect. They can inspire other people to take action, to question things, to start building that better world we all want.
Wow, this book has really made me rethink a lot of things. It's like once you see the matrix, you can't unsee it.
That's the power of knowledge, right? It changes how you see the world. And that's what's so great about this book. It's not just about understanding masculinity or truth or deception. It's about understanding yourself, your place in the world, and what you're capable of.
I'm definitely feeling fired up and ready to get out there and make a difference.
Yeah.
But I think I need to read this book again a few times to really absorb everything.
I hear you. It's a lot to take in. It makes you think, and it definitely challenges you to see things differently. But that's what makes it so interesting. It's a journey, not a destination.
So to sum it all up today, we did a deep dive into this amazing book that really makes us question everything we thought we knew about masculinity, reality, and truth. It's a call to break free from the matrix, to take control of our own lives, and to build a better world.
And the best part is it's not just theory. It's full of practical advice and tools that we can all start using today to live more authentic, more fulfilling, and more impactful lives.
If you want to learn more about these ideas and start your own journey of breaking free, be sure to check out the book. It's available on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
And remember, it all starts with you.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.